Do you like this show and want to make your own? Let me tell you about Anchor. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Now you can even add any song from Spotify directly to your episodes. The possibilities are endless for what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's that time, the Betting Predators podcast, where our main objective is hunting down the best bets for you. I'm your host, Sleepy J. You guys can find me on Twitter at SleepyJ_pregame. Joined here by the MMA guru, UFC fanatic, Mean Gene. You guys can find him on Twitter as well at MeanGene0022. And you can find us both on the best sports betting information site on the web, pregame.com. All right, Gene, here we go. UFC Fight Night. This one will be at the Apex on Saturday in Las Vegas. Main event for this one's going to be Marina Rodriguez against Michelle Waterson. We do have some notable names on this card. And Gene and I, we're going to go ahead. We're going to break down 5 fights for you guys that we think have a little bit of betting value. Gene, I want to go ahead. I want to start out here. It's one of the early fights here. This is the one that I'm probably looking forward to most. Amanda Ribas, she's going to be going against Angela Hill. Ribas going to be around minus 190. Hill plus 150 if you like the dog. Gene, I'll go ahead. I'll start this one out first. I like Ribas because I think she's hot. And, had I bet her the last time, she would have let me down. Gene, you and I talked about Ribas, after she won her fight in Abu Dhabi early July last year when she beat Paige Van Zandt. And I was actually convinced, and you and I had spoke about this, that I felt like a couple more wins under her belt, and the UFC was going to try to make her, one of the faces within the UFC for the females. Well, she ended up faltering against Rodriguez, and we know Rodriguez is pretty good. I mean, she went through a war with Esparza. She's going to headline this event here. But my gut feeling is like the UFC, they're still trying to go ahead and get Ribas to be, somewhat of a face for the company. And look, Angela Hill, she's no slouch. I know there's a lot of sharp people out there that are going ahead and backing her. And we've seen her fight, really well over her last few fights. And to me, it's just like she doesn't seem to have that killer instinct. And I'm not really sure if Ribas has it either. I think the odds are maybe a little bit long here, Gene, on Ribas. Minus 190 seems a little bit steep. I'll probably back her, but my gut feeling is it's going to end up being in a parlay with somebody else later on this card. So I'll go ahead. I'll back Ribas, but I'll do it in a parlay. I think 190 is a little bit pricey, but there's no way I'm going to bet against her. I just think she's too hot. I think she's too cool. I think she's too good for somebody like Angela Hill. So I'll go ahead. I'll back her in the first fight here. How you feeling about Ribas and Hill?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the line. I was surprised that this line opened so high, and it's continued to rise since the opening. Amanda Ribas is a talented UFC fighter. She was on her rise and stumbled against Rodriguez. Rodriguez, like you said, very good fighter. She's going to be headlining this card, so we'll get an opportunity to see if she continues on that trend upward. But Amanda Ribas in that fight against Rodriguez was beating her in that first round. She dominated Rodriguez in the first round, was able to take her down and control her and land some strikes. She just got caught in that second round, and she's trying to get better with her striking. She's primarily a grappler, very good Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. So she's going to look to get Angela Hill down to the ground and work her submission games. Angela Hill is a striker. It's almost like the same type of matchup against the Michelle Rodriguez, except Angela Hill, older fighter, not the best striker, definitely not on Rodriguez's level. So Ribas should get the win here. She should be able to handle Hill's power on the feet, and Hill on the ground, she's just not good, to be honest with you. Lesser fighters have been able to take her down and dominate her. I look for Ribas to be smart here, avoid Hill's striking on the feet, just get this fight to the ground and get the victory. As we already said, she's one of the better prospects in the strawweight division. I think she realized, hey, I was winning my previous fight. I got caught. let's be smart this time out, get the win here, and just continue to move up the strawweight division. So my pick is Ribas here. I believe she needs to go into a parlay. To take her straight would be crazy. Yeah, we don't know if that knockout against Rodriguez is going to affect her moving forward in her chin. She has been knocked out before against Viana, and so and Hill's got decent power on the feet. So I don't want to back her as a 190 favorite. So she's more of a parlay piece in my opinion. But the straight pick is Amanda Ribas here.
All right, well, I'm glad you kind of agree with me on that one. I was worried that you might go against me and actually take Hill. There's a lot of sharp people out there that are going ahead and they're backing Hill. I won't do that. I've watched her fight. She's been half decent, but for me, I just feel like Ribas is probably the better fighter. Let's jump into our next one here. We're gonna have Diego Ferreira. He's gonna be plus 150. He's gonna be an underdog in this one against Gregor Gillespie. Gillespie's gonna be another minus 190 favorite. Here's what I'm going to do, Gene. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play this one to go the distance. My gut feeling says, both of these guys are solid. Both guys are solid on the ground, but I doubt either guy will get, a decent advantage on the ground and force a submission or a stoppage. I feel like the odds are a little bit steep here to probably go ahead and back Gillespie. I figure why lay minus 190 with the fighter who, he's not exactly a lock. And I feel like I could lay minus 210 for this to go the distance, and that seems like the safer bet for me. I have respect for Diego Ferreira. I think that he could go out there and win this fight, but my gut feeling is, do I want to back minus 190? Do I want to take plus 150? I feel like it's a little risky for me. I feel like this one probably goes the distance. Don't have a real strong feeling on this one, but I would probably just play it to go the distance because I feel that that's probably the safest bet. So I'll probably just go ahead and do that. That's probably all I'll do for that fight. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm feeling frisky here. I'm actually going to go with Diego Ferreira here. This is going to be a tough fight for him, of course, especially after fighting Beneil Dariush in his last fight, and he was taken down 5 times in that fight. So naturally, and this line kind of confuses me a little bit, but I also do understand because of his previous fight. So in that fight, he was on a rise 6 or 7 fights in a row. He was looking like he was going to crack the top 5 in the lightweight division. He fights Dariush. Dariush is a strong grappler, but even more importantly, he's a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. So is Ferreira, and you felt like the fight would be contested on the feet. It wasn't, and Dariush utilized his grappling and his wrestling and was able to kind of control Ferreira. Now the fight ended in a split decision, so one of the judges had Ferreira winning that fight, and it was very close. I believe I actually took Ferreira in that matchup as well, so I was on the losing end of that. But it was a close fight. Ferreira is very good on the ground, and even when Dariush was taking him down, he was looking for Omoplata. He almost finished him there. A couple other submission attempts, and against lesser fighters or lesser like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, which is Conor Gillespie, I feel like those type of fighters would have gotten caught and ended up getting submitted. Dariush didn't, so congrats to him. He ends up beating Ferreira. But I feel like that one loss is like, that's why he's such to me, a big underdog. I feel like this line should be lined a little bit closer, to be honest with you, where more of like a Ferreira, maybe a plus 125, plus 130, and Gillespie more of like a minus 160, 170 I could see. But minus 210 is what I'm seeing at DraftKings. That's a little insane to me. Gillespie, very good wrestler. That's his game. He pressures you. He has great cardio. He's relentless, strong body locks, gets you down to the ground, controls you on the ground. He's very active. He tries to pass your guard, ground and pound. He looks for submissions himself on the ground. But going up against Ferreira is going to be able to look for submissions and try to lock up, triangle chokes, arm bars, leg locks. And I don't think Gillespie's really ready for that. He hasn't fought any competition that's at the level of Ferreira, especially in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu side. And Ferreira on the feet can definitely match Gillespie's pace. He's a pressure fighter. He has great cardio. He's got good power. He's a pretty good striker as well. Like, whereas Gillespie, his base is wrestling, and he's transitioning into striking. He's getting better with his striking, but he's not. His base is wrestling. Whereas like Fajeda, yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he is a striker though at heart as well, and a pretty damn good striker. So, man, I feel like just the value is all on Fajeda here. I couldn't believe it was at 165. Don't get me wrong, Gillespie's very talented, but he's been out for over a year after his head kick loss to Kevin Lee in November of like 2019, I think it was. And the guy, I don't know if this will really be a factor, but he has some mental things going on with him, where you question, does he really love the sport of MMA? Is he really committed? And coming into this fight after a year and a half off, that's just another factor in me picking Fajeda. I think Fajeda realized, like, man, I was right there, right outside the top 5. I slipped up, lost to Dariush, but man, he's getting right back in there against another ranked opponent in Gillespie. And if he beats Gillespie, man, he's right back up in that mix in the lightweight division. And given his age, he doesn't have too much time. So I feel like he's going to come in here focused. I feel like he's going to be able to outstrike Gillespie on the feet. And I wonder if Gillespie has fallen in love with his striking. He's got decent power. I wonder if he's going to if he's going to be scared of taking Fajeda down to the ground, knowing that he might be submitted. So if this is just a purely striking affair, I think Fajeda is going to get the better of it. So I'm going to go with Diego Fajeda. I feel like the value is on him at plus 165. As for your play, going to a decision, going the distance, I love that play. Both these guys are super durable. They're tough, and they have heart. They're not just going to give up. So, yeah, I do like your play or your angle of going with the decision. Me personally, I'm just going to go with Diego Fajeda plus 165. I like the value on that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you ended up taking Fajeda either with that decent of a price. And that's kind of what scared me with Gillespie was I thought it was just the odds were just too long. And then, we just talked about, Fajeda and Dariush. And, speaking of Dariush, before we keep going here, next week you and I, we're going to go ahead and preview UFC 262. Dariush is on that card. So that'll be interesting. But that's just kind of what I was thinking. I was like going back with, Fajeda losing against Dariush. I'm like, oh, do I want to back the guy who lost? And I remember that you had picked him, and I don't think that fight was that far off. I thought that fight was actually pretty close. So I figured I'll just do what I feel is safe, and I don't have any problem with you going ahead taking the dog here because I felt like the line was just a little bit too high for Gillespie. So I like both of those plays. Let's jump into the next one here. We got Jeff Neal. He's going to be another minus 190 favorite. Neil Magny will be on the card. He'll be facing him. Magny right around plus 150. Gene, I'll let you go ahead and rip a run on this one. I felt pretty confident in this one, but I kind of want to know what you think here first, because if you're on the opposite side, maybe I'll just change my mind in my entire handicap because I don't want to sound kind of stupid with this one. So how you feeling about Neal and Magny?
Talent-wise, yeah, Jeff Neal should be this big of a favorite. And after this fight, if he ends up getting the win, you might look back and be like, wow, he was only a minus 190 favorite. He should have been, much higher, 250, 260 type of range. But man, Neil Magny is a vet. If people don't know, he's had like over 20 fights in the UFC, and he's only 33 years old, 34 years old. It's crazy how long he's been in the UFC and how many fights he's had. So, and he's fought the who's who in the division. And the UFC at this point right now, they're just feeding him up and coming prospects, and Jeff Neal falls into that category. Jeff Neal took a big step up in his last fight and fought Stephen Thompson, and just got outclassed. Stephen Thompson is legitimately top 2, top 3 in the division. Jeff Neal's not at that point right now, but facing a guy like Magny, I feel like that's a good step back for him. He's going to fight a tough guy, a vet who's experienced and can offer him different looks. Neil Magny he's going to look to pressure you, get you in the clinch, get you down, try to wear on you, or he can also stand up and try to pick you apart from the outside. In this particular matchup, Jeff Neal, I feel like this is a great matchup for him to bounce back. Neil Magny's not fast. He's kind of just a good all-around solid fighter, whereas Jeff Neal is explosive, ridiculous knockout power, very strong with the grappling, and he's going to look to outpace a Neil Magny. I see this fight going Jeff Neal knocking out Neil Magny in 3 rounds. I feel like this is going to be a kind of coming out party for Jeff Neal. A lot of people obviously know about him. He's a highly ranked prospect in the UFC and in that division, but I feel like coming back after a loss against Wonder Boy to get a knockout victory over Neil Magny will be a huge statement for him and get him back into that mix of like the top, 7-8 fighters in the welterweight division. I understand some sharps taking Neil Magny. I kind of honestly look at this fight like the Amanda Ribas and the Angela Hill fight. It's one of those things where you're like, hey, you have a highly touted prospect who had a slip up in their previous fight, and you're looking to kind of fade that individual against a crafty vet, someone that's been there, who actually has a decent resume. But at the end of the day, I feel like the age, I feel like the power and the skills of these younger fighters, i.e. Amanda Ribas and Jeff Neal, will end up getting it done. So I got Jeff Neal here. I think he gets it done inside the distance with a TKO, KO over Neil Magny.
All right, well, that certainly makes me feel pretty good because I actually think that Neal's going to come into this fight, rather confident. You mentioned the Wonder Boy fight, and I think that actually, that's a good loss, for his particular resume. But this is going to go on his resume, I think, as a really good win for him if he can go ahead and take out Magny. Magny to me, and I don't know if you agree with me, Gene, but I think he's just Jekyll and Hyde. You never know which Neil Magny's going to go ahead and enter the cage. Now, we've seen, the good Magny, most recently, like he's actually been fighting rather well. But I just wonder, which one comes in here. If it's the good one, I think this fight's close. But if it's the bad one, I don't think this fight's close at all. I think Neal will eventually take him out in some fashion. My thinking is, Magny's kind of starting to tire out a little bit, and Neal, he's just kind of ready to make his mark, within the welterweight division right now. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to parlay Ribas, and I'm going to parlay Neal, both at minus 190. And I'm going to get a parlay here with both of those at pretty much even money. So I'm glad to hear you like Neal in this one here, Gene. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's jump over to the next one here. We got Cerrone, minus 177. He's going to go up against Morano, plus 145. This one was tough for me. This was probably the toughest of all of them. I feel like I can't back the dog here. I'm worried that Cerrone is kind of getting up there in age as well. Both of these guys have taken their beatings over the last few years. Moreno's coming in here on short notice, and my gut feeling is, Cerrone wants to get a win here at some point. He's lost to some real solid guys, recently, with Pettis, McGregor, Gaethje, Ferguson. It was like, all right, dude, he needed to drop down in class, and then he drops down. He fights Nico Price. I mean, that was just an all-out war. That ended up in a draw. Cerrone wasn't exactly too happy, with his performance in that fight. He was really upset that he didn't go out there and use his kicking game. And he mentioned that more than a few times, especially in the post-fight conference. Like, he was like, he had his head down. He was just really upset that he felt like he was really in shape. He had a really good camp, and he came in there and he was like, everything I wanted to do. He was like, I just didn't do it. And he credited Nico, for going out there and making him fight a different style of fight. But I feel like Cerrone comes into this one, he's going to use that kicking game for sure. But I don't know, man. He's been through a lot of wars, man. He's faced, some really tough competition. He hasn't won in like 5 or 6 fights. I feel like minus 180 on him is just a little bit too pricey. Both of these guys could take a beating, and I just wonder how much Cerrone has left in the tank. Now, Gene, he hasn't said that he wants to retire. He'll probably, go in this fight and say the same thing. I mean, Cerrone's, he's just one of those grizzled vets that's going to be around for, quite some time. I feel the same way with this fight, like I do with the Fajeda and Gillespie fight, that it's probably going to end up going the distance. I could lay minus 210 on this one. I feel like both of these guys are going to step in there, try to do their thing, but I don't think either guy is going to take each other out. I have a feeling that at the end, they're both going to be standing there. One of them's going to get their hand raised. I don't think there's any way that Cerrone ends up with, 2 fights in a row that end in a draw. So me, it's to go the distance minus 210. I think this will be a pretty entertaining fight. I'm glad to see Cerrone on the card. Just being a fan of the UFC and a fan of him, I hope he ends up getting a win here sooner or later. But I mean, man, it's tough to go ahead and back him, especially at that price. With the results that he's been getting, and if he can't take out somebody like Nico Price, you got to wonder what he's going to do here. I was actually hoping that Nico Price and him would actually run it back here rather quickly. So I'm actually looking forward to that fight if that fight happens again. I thought that one was awesome, but that's what I'm going to do, Gene. I'm going to go ahead and play this one to go the distance minus the 210. Feel pretty confident in that. What are you thinking about for that fight?
So my initial thoughts when the fight was booked, because Diego Sanchez, it was originally supposed to be Cowboy versus Diego Sanchez. Cowboy Cerrone would have destroyed Diego Sanchez. So this is more competitive fight here against Alex Moreno. So my initial thought was Alex Moreno, jump on him, dog, plus 160, plus 170. You got Cerrone on a 4-fight losing streak, hasn't won a fight in his last 5 fights because of that draw against Nico Price. But after doing some tape study and really digging back into it, there's no way I'm taking Alex Moreno here outside of a lucky punch. If Cerrone's chin is shot for whatever reason, because he's been in some wars and he has been knocked out recently, if his chin is truly shot, which I don't think it is, if it is, then Moreno has a chance, puncher's chance to knock him out. But Cerrone is just better everywhere. There's just striking. He's light years above Moreno. Grappling, light years above Moreno. There's just no aspect of this fight that Moreno is going to have the advantage in. You have Cerrone, who has fought. This is his last 5 fights. He fought Nico Price. Nico Price was landing bombs on him. Cerrone was able to stay in there. He fought Anthony Pettis. He fought Conor McGregor, Justin Gaethje, and then Tony Ferguson. So those are his last 5 fights. Those are the who's who. Those are all killers. And he was able to, in some of those, he got knocked out, obviously. But, man, he's fighting killers here. This is Donald Cerrone. He's fought the who's who. We don't even need to go through his entire resume. And then you have Alex Moreno on the other side. He's just 18-7. I don't think he's of Donald Cerrone's caliber. I just feel like this is a winnable fight for Donald Cerrone. There has been whispers about Donald Cerrone retiring, like this being his last fight. I don't believe it. It's Donald Cerrone. I think he's going to fight until the doctors or someone tells him he can't fight anymore. I think he's going to fight until his leg falls off. So in this matchup, I got Donald Cerrone. I think he easily beats Alex Moreno, and I think he definitely has a chance of going to a decision. Both these guys are tough. That's one thing I will give Alex Moreno credit for. He is a tough fighter, and we already know about Donald Cerrone. So my pick is Donald Cerrone here to beat Alex Moreno.
Yeah, I certainly can't fault you for that. I think if Cerrone comes in here and he fights to kind of breaks out all his weapons, that there's probably no way that he'll lose because he just has way too much, in his arsenal. And then you have to figure the motivations there, Gene, too, for him to go ahead and finally get a win under his belt. It's just scary, it's tough to back a guy who, has been in wars and it's I think more than anything for me, Gene, it's the fact that he didn't get through, Nico Price. That's the one that worries me. Like I felt like he probably should have won that one. But this will be a good fight to watch. Let's go over to the main event here, Gene. We got Rodriguez. She's going to go up against Watterson. Rodriguez is going to be minus 215. I feel like that's just way too high. Watterson plus 175. For me, Gene, I'm on the fence with this one. After Rodriguez went ahead, took out Ribas and Esparza, it's like I don't want to fade her here. But I feel like if this one starts to get a little bit long, that Watterson's going to have the cardio to outlast Rodriguez, and this one could go Watterson's way. If I had to go ahead and make a pick, it would be Watterson. But for me, I don't want to fade Rodriguez here. So, unfortunately, Gene, I'm going to have to go ahead and pass the main event. I feel like that's the safest thing for me to do. I know there's a lot of people that are taking, the big plus money here with Watterson. I don't fault them for that, but I don't want to fade Rodriguez, in this type of a spot here. So, For me, unfortunately, Gene, I'm going to go ahead and pass. How you feeling about Rodriguez and Watterson?
So we have a couple fights on this card that we've already mentioned where the line's a bit questionable. Amanda Ribas versus Angela Hill, Jeff Neal versus Neil Magny. These are kind of, we feel like these lines should be a little bit closer given the fighter's previous fight. Here's the third one on the card. Completely agree with you. The reason why this fight for me, I'm really questioning the odds is because of the stylistic matchup here. The other two fights that I mentioned, there's not really a stylistic discrepancy in those two fights. Both of the fighters pretty much do the same thing. One might do one aspect. One might be grapple a little bit more than the other one, but they're pretty much even fighters in the sense of skills. This one, yes, there is some evenness in some of the skills, but Michelle Watterson clearly has the advantage on the ground. Marina Rodriguez has clearly shown that she can be taken down and controlled. She's an amazing striker, Marina Rodriguez, on the feet. She should destroy Watterson on the feet. It should not even be really a contest in the sense of over a 5-round fight. Watterson will be able to hang early, but over the course of 5 rounds, I feel like Marina Rodriguez's striking on the feet is light years above Michelle Watterson's. But the one factor that has me worried here is like, man, if Michelle Watterson just in a 5-round fight just decides, hey, I'm going to take her down and just control her, she can do that. Like, that is the one thing with Marina Rodriguez, as talented as she is, she just gets controlled on the ground. And I spoke about earlier with the Amanda Ribas fight. Amanda Ribas won that first round and was controlling her on the ground. The second round, Marina Rodriguez ended up landing that nice counter punch and getting Amanda Ribas out of there. There's no issues on the feet for Marina Rodriguez in this fight against Michelle Watterson. She should win the majority of the striking exchanges on the feet. But if somehow Michelle Watterson is able to take down Marina Rodriguez, I worry about Marina Rodriguez getting controlled for multiple rounds. This fight, it just lines up to be your classic striker versus grappler matchup, and obviously Marina Rodriguez will look to keep this fight on the feet. She's a diverse volume striker, and she has a Muay Thai background, so she lands vicious knees and elbows. Even if she's taking on the ground, that's one factor I want to mention here. If she's taken down on the ground on the back, she lands vicious elbows from the bottom. She cut up Carla Esparza really bad. I personally had Marina Rodriguez beating Carla Esparza in that fight. It was a split decision win for Carla Esparza, but if you looked at the two fighters after the fight, you're like, man, Marina Rodriguez won that fight because Carla Esparza was cut up, beat up, swollen eye, bleeding all over the cage. But it was because Carla Esparza was able to take her down multiple times over the course of that fight that she ended up eking out the split decision victory there. So that's what worries me about this fight is Michelle Watterson could do the same thing as Carla Esparza, take a ton of damage. I think she'll be able to stay on her feet over the course of 5 rounds, more than Michelle Watterson's going to like. And I think she'll obviously win those striking exchanges, do enough damage, and eventually get her hand raised. I would not be surprised if Marina Rodriguez ends up finishing this fight inside the distance. Michelle Watterson, the one thing about her is she wears that damage, man. When she takes a bunch of shots, her nose is broken, bleeding, swollen eyes, and that goes a long way in the judges' minds. I mean, that's damage, and that's one of the top 2 factors, or top 2 things that judges look at to determine who won a fight. So Marina Rodriguez has legit knockout power on the feet, and I think she'll be able to do a ton of damage on Michelle Watterson. As long as she stops the takedowns, she's going to win this fight. And so maybe at the end of this, you look at it, it's like, oh, the line is correct. She should have been a minus 200 favorite. But in the sense of skills and paths to victory, Michelle Watterson has a clear path to victory here. And we'll see if Marina Rodriguez shored up that deficiency in her game. She's coming in on short notice. Both of these fighters are coming in on short notice. This fight was just announced on Monday of this week. So it will be contested at 125. That's one thing I do want to mention. They're both straw weights, which is 115. This is actually going to be a 125. So slight advantage to Marina Rodriguez, who has had issues with weight cutting in the past. and also being 10 pounds heavier. She already has power, but now being 10 pounds heavier, I think that's going to help her as well. So, long story short, I got Marina Rodriguez here to win. I'm going to stay away from it in the sense of a betting standpoint, but I do have Marina Rodriguez winning this fight. And man, I might end up sprinkling a little bit on her to get the victory inside the distance.
Well, I certainly wouldn't go ahead and disagree with you on that one there, Gene. You made a really good case, solid handicap to go ahead and back that one. Well, that'll wrap up the pod, guys. We went through 5 fights for you. Gene and I went ahead, we broke down all the fights and all the wagers that we think are at least worth making for this one. Make sure you guys double back here. Check back when we do the UFC 262. We'll do that one next week. You guys know where to find me on Twitter, SleepyJ_pregame. You know where to find Gene at MeanGene0022. And you can find us both on the best sports betting information site on the web, pregame.com. With that said, I'd like to wish you guys all the best of luck on UFC Fight Night. Enjoy the fights.